Hello, I'm Jeff Allen Wolf, and this is A World Gone Mad. We are in the land of lunacy. What do I mean by that? I mean specifically Donald, the delusional one, the master snake oil salesman, is just about on empty with his brain cells. Every day moving forward, every hour of each day, more lunacy happens because of Donald Trump's actions. You have to wonder, is it Donald and his ego making all the decisions for America and the consequences for the rest of the world? Is it Donald who has lost all capacity of doing the heavy lifting? Or is it the people behind the scenes who are enabling Donald and whispering in his ear, telling him what to do? I think it's the latter more than the former. I don't think Donald Trump is the sharpest tool in the presidential toolbox. I think he has no depth, no clue, no understanding of the world, let alone America. I think, quite frankly, he's bats. Crazy, nuts. What do you think? What are your thoughts, listener? You can reach me at wolfpacktalks@gmail.com. Love to hear from you. By the way, I did receive a few messages from a few listeners about the last episode. I was shocked. And they were talking about the last episode, and people were messaging me by texting within the podcast app. Some of you can do that while you're listening on the app. But please, 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 I remind you, I cannot reply back to you through the app. I have no way of commenting on any of your messages, and some of them were nice, and I would really like to comment. Also, some of you were leaving your city and state where you were commenting from, but not your first name. Please, please leave your first name. I'd like to know who I'm reading the comment from. Okay, here we go. Right now on planet Earth, we've got a sitting U.S. president literally announcing that an armada, a massive fleet of U.S. naval warships, is heading toward Iran. And he keeps saying it out loud like it's some sort of bowling score update. We are being told that the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier strike group and several guided missile destroyers are being moved toward the Middle East region where Iran sits. And this is all happening as tensions with Tehran are at a boiling point amidst one of the deadliest crackdowns on protests in years inside Iran itself. So what's going on? Trump says this fleet is about deterrence and keeping Tehran in check over its disputed nuclear program. And Trump has separately warned Iran about executing protesters, framing those killings as something the United States is watching closely. And here's where this whole thing collapses under its own weight. Because while Trump is out here wagging his finger at Tehran over how a government treats protesters, his own administration is unleashing ICE raids. Mass roundups, unleashing the ICE raids, militarized enforcement, and violent confrontations with civilians inside the United States. So let's be honest about what we're watching, okay? You don't get to posture as the global defender of protesters abroad while cheering, excusing, or ignoring state violence at home in your own country. You don't get to say killing or brutalizing protesters is unacceptable in Iran, but somehow just law and order when it happens on American streets. That's not moral leadership. That's selective outrage. That's power, Donald, talking with forked tongue. And when you start moving aircraft carriers around the world based on that kind of hypocrisy, it stops being theater and starts becoming dangerous. Because mixed signals don't deter conflict, they invite miscalculation. We have the U.S. saying they hope they don't have to fight, but then Trump repeatedly reminds us the armada is there just in case something happens. In other words, the world is literally being told this massive fleet is on call for war but maybe we won't use it. Maybe we will. We'll see. And here's the kicker. Economic markets are already reacting. Oil prices jumped sharply once traders heard Armada, because Iran sits on a massive chunk of the world's oil exports. And if the Strait of Hormuz gets involved, global energy prices don't just twitch, they spike. So let's be real. Is this a campaign stunt? Is it political theater? Maybe. Are these moves just posturing? Quite possibly. But guess what? This isn't a tweet storm about office supplies. This is real naval forces being repositioned toward a volatile region with a government that has literally said it would respond with force if attacked. So this could absolutely trigger something bad for the world if one side misreads the other, or someone takes a shot thinking they can get away with it. This isn't an episode of Top Gun or a naval parade. This is the real world, with real sailors, real jets, real protesters already dead, and both sides telling the other, don't make me do this, while also saying, I totally could do this. That right there is not comedy gold. That's the kind of tension that can actually yank the global chain. This is what it looks like when Donald Trump is coming apart in real time. Minute by minute, post by post, rant by rant, the emotional volatility is obvious. Trump's impulse control is gone, and his thinking is getting thinner and crazier by the day. This isn't strategy anymore. This is reaction, lashing out, Trump contradicting himself, picking fights that don't advance anything, and pretending it's strength when it's clearly exhaustion wrapped in bravado. Let's talk about Trump's energy level, because that matters. This is not a man operating at the top of his game. This is low energy leadership, masquerading as dominance, confusion framed as confidence, decline disguised as toughness. When emotional instability meets thinning judgment and dwindling stamina, the danger isn't just embarrassment, it's decision making. Because the world doesn't need a president running on fumes, grievance, and impulse. And the more Trump flails, the clearer it becomes. This isn't command, it's deterioration happening in front of the public. So now we've also got Donald Trump floating the idea of this so-called peace board for Gaza, a hand-picked group he claims could shape the future of the region and possibly the world, replacing NATO. No elections, no international process, just Trump deciding who gets a seat at the table and who doesn't. And then comes the insult layered on top of the chaos from Donald. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney is reportedly excluded from this group, while Trump talks about surrounding himself with strong leaders. Strong apparently meaning a compliant, authoritarian leader or a useful leader. Here's the part that should outrage people. You don't build peace by assembling a club of thugs, thieves, and dictators and calling it diplomacy. That's not a peace board. That's a loyalty board. Honestly, Mark Carney from Canada should be relieved. Being kicked out of Trump's fantasy council isn't a snub. It's a badge of sanity. Because when Trump decides who qualifies as a peacemaker, what he really means is who won't question him or his decisions. This week, during testimony before Congress, Jack Smith, the special counsel that oversaw the January 6th investigation, delivered a warning that cut straight through the noise. When Jack Smith tells Congress that democracy is in jeopardy, that is not metaphor, and it is not exaggeration. This is a career prosecutor saying the system only works if people accept outcomes they don't like and obey the law even when it costs them power. Smith's warning to Congress is simple and brutal. When leaders undermine elections, attack courts, sound familiar, and normalize defiance of lawful authority, democracy doesn't crack all at once. It corrodes quietly, relentlessly. Smith made it clear this isn't about policy disagreements or heated rhetoric. It's about something far more dangerous. The deliberate effort to convince millions of Americans that facts are optional, verdicts are illegitimate, and accountability is persecution. That's how democratic systems fail, everyone. Not through tanks in the streets, but through sustained lies that hollow out trust until nothing holds. And this is the part people should not ignore. Jack Smith is not a pundit. He doesn't traffic in drama. He doesn't do alarmism. For someone like him to look Congress in the eye and say democracy is in jeopardy means the threat has already crossed from theory into reality. This is not a future problem. It's a present one. And when the people tasked with enforcing the law are telling you the foundation is shaking, ignoring it isn't skepticism. It's surrender. And when democracy falls apart, it won't be because people weren't warned. It'll be because they chose not to listen. Here's a further update on ICE. This isn't some bureaucratic memo buried in a filing cabinet. Federal immigration officers are now acting as if they can force their way into people's homes without a judicial warrant, relying instead on internal administrative warrants signed by immigration officials. Memos. That is a seismic shift away from long-standing Fourth Amendment protections that exist for one reason: to stop exactly this kind of government overreach. We've already seen this play out in the real world. Judges have ruled that breaking into homes without a judge-signed warrant violates the Constitution. And yet, the agency keeps pushing the line anyway. There's a video of federal agents smashing through doors, entering private homes, physically pulling people out of their houses. There's one video of someone spraying pepper spray right in the person's face up close. They're pulling people out of their houses, sometimes at gunpoint, without a court ever approving it. That includes U.S. citizens and families who were never charged with a crime. This is not theoretical. It's happening. And this matters because the Fourth Amendment is not a polite suggestion. It is a constitutional firewall. Your home is supposed to be the one place the government cannot enter on a whim. When ICE treats an internal piece of paper as if it overrides a judge, that is not law enforcement. That is Gestapo logic, plain and simple, repackaged under an American flag, signed, sealed, and delivered by Donny Boy. And don't let anyone bullshit you into thinking this is limited or harmless. Once the government normalizes smashing into homes and dragging people out for one group of people, it becomes easier to justify it for the next. Immigrants today, protesters tomorrow. Anyone inconvenient after that. That's how authoritarian systems work. They don't arrive all at once. They creep. This is wrong. It is illegal. And it is un-American. If the government needs a judge's permission to search a filing cabinet, it damn well needs a judge's permission to break into your home. When the state starts treating doors as optional and rights as conditional, you're talking about agents placing themselves above the law, acting as if the law no longer applies to them at all. And when law enforcement decides it answers to power instead of the Constitution, that is a police state enforcing fear. I'd like to leave you, the Wolfpack listener, with one visual commentary from me, okay? This is about Trump demanding he wants Greenland. Now, I'm just saying, okay, listen to me carefully. They could fly Trump to Alaska, tell him it's Greenland, and say it's now part of America. And it would solve a whole lot of rigmarole. You know, you could even add a ribbon cutting ceremony for good measure and give Donald a little trophy. Wolfpack listeners, this visual is hilarious if it wasn't so sad. This is the state of mind of Donald Trump where something this far-fetched would actually work. I don't think you or I ever envisioned our country becoming this, becoming a shadow of the true greatness we once were. I could go on and on in this episode, but I don't want to get to the point where my head explodes about all the venomous bullshit coming from Donald and his administration. So we'll leave it at that. Hey, this is episode number 199. Episode 200, milestone 200, will be Monday of next week in case anybody cares. I mentioned during the last few episodes that my family and I are going through a terrible time, and we are stuck and still neck deep in it. In this economy, because of Donald, it's very hard to get another job. So it takes anywhere from 6 to 10 months to replace an income that you lose. So Natasha and I still need your help. A few people asked me, so I included the link in the podcast description if you're looking for a way to help us. Again, zero obligation to anyone. And a big thank you to everyone who did help. Natasha and I appreciate you taking a look at the link and showing us your care and support. You have no idea. Thank you, guys and gals. I want to be repetitive. If you can't help, we understand. But can you please at least share the GoFundMe link with everyone? All Natasha and I can do is take it 1 hour at a time. I'm Jeff Allen Wolf. This is A World Gone Mad. The shit is hitting the fan because of Donald, and I'm doing everything I can to keep it from totally covering up the house and America. Everyone, lock in, keep alert, remain skeptical, but most of all, stay hopeful.